Guys, so today we are going to take a look at how we can make some beautiful graphics in Unity. As you can see, today we have a small scene setup. It's quite basic. As you can see, it's very empty all around. I just have a little bit of a setup here with some trees, a train, as well as some power lines and grass. And I've got two camera placements, so one is here and then another one is up top. So let's take a look at how we can convert this into a realistic looking, or at very least a beautiful looking scene. So the first thing that we want to do here is let's assign some kind of materials and texture to the actual terrain object, this one. This would help give the crown a small nice texture. So as you can see here, I've got some textures that I've downloaded. This one is for the grass that we're going to use. Then we've got someone with the rocky textures, we've got muddy textures, we've also got some coarse sand kind of textures as well. And for the train we also have a rusty metal texture, as well as another texture that we can use for the different sections of the train. And as for the leaves and foliages, I'll look for them in a bit, and I'll add them here as we move on. So let's start with the ground texture. So let's switch over to let's click on the ground. Over here, let's just click on this icon right here, the second option. This allows us to paint the terrain and increase its sizes and stuff like that, as you can see. So if you wanted to perhaps make some terrains a little bit higher, for instance, you could do that. So I'm going to take this brush and add some mountains over there. So I'll just raise the terrain. As you can see here, we can definitely see some mountain. Actually, let's revert back. I'll download a quick access asset on the asset store, which is called the terrain tools. Link will be in the description down below, and I'll be right back. So here is the assets that I've downloaded. It's called the terrain sample asset pack. It's from Unity itself, and it actually gives you quite a bit more paintbrushes that you can use. As you can see here, now we have way more options, and we can therefore take one or two of them to make the mountains look better and more organic. So now let me choose this one, but you can choose any other ones that you want. And over here, let's just increase the brush size a little, perhaps like so, and increase the opacity as well. And now I'm just going to paint on it like so, just to make some mountains. I'm just alternating around with the brushes to make some landscape, but you can take more time with it if you really wanted to. I think we've got, yeah, we can make another bigger mountain here, and let me take another one and put it right here. And this one should technically be a little bit bigger as well, so we can see it in the background rising. And I'll just put one over here as well as someone over here. Great. So let's save this. Now we've got some background mountain in action, as well as foreground element. And let's switch here. Let me make one of these bigger by a little bit. Let's make this one a little bit bigger as here. Maybe this one as well. Yep. Okay, great. And then here, let's just also make this a little bit bigger, so it does not just look like the sky here. Great. So now that we've got this in place, we've set up the environment for our two different cameras. We can start texturing right away. So let's just select the ground again, and let's just come here. Here itself, paint texture. And what we are going to do now is we are going to create a new brush. Alright, so let's just create a new layer here, and let's just select one of these textures. Let me just select one real quick. Okay, let me just take this one for now. As you can see here, it just paints the texture, puts it everywhere. Obviously this could be good for you, but let's just add more layers to make it a little bit better, especially these ones. As you can see, it's too shiny, so it's not really how we want, because ground is not shiny at all. So let's just create some more layers, and then we'll just fix everything. All right, so I'll get back to you in a few. Okay, great. So now that we've got some new layers, I've also managed to fix the shiny effect. Here, when you drag this, it was like that. All you had to do is change the smoothness source to constant, and then just decrease the smoothness value to the minimum. As you can see here, now it just is not shiny as we want it to be. So now that what we can do is let's just try and see if the scale of the actual texture is right. The way that we're going to find this is if we go into our game view, we can observe the ground texture, and as you can see here, it fits perfectly. It does not seem to be too small nor too big. And if we switch to camera 2 as well, we can definitely see that it's definitely doing a great job. So that's our first layer. Now let's move on to the second layer. Actually, let's just do the mountains first. So for the mountain, I have a snow as well as some kind of rocky side or texture. So let's just take the rocky texture and let's just paint them on top of here. Okay, so I've decreased the opacity a little bit. Where is it? Here it is. So it's at 23%. Let's just increase it to 60, and let's just paint the top of the mountains like so. And now it definitely looks better. Let me just increase the opacity a little bit more. Yep, it definitely looks a little better now. But as you can see here, we can see a lot of repeating patterns, and from afar it does not seem too different. So the way we fix this is actually quite simple. If we were to come here in the tiling settings, as you can see here, we have the tiling options, and if I were to increase it, let's put 15 for instance, you'll see that the texture becomes bigger. Alright, so what we can do is we can play around with the tiling to make it a little bit better and look better. So let's put 10 for instance, and 10, maybe 5. Okay. Okay, so let's do 10 itself. Another settings that I want to actually change is if I click on it, I want to be able to say that it needs, instead of repeat, let's do mirror. Okay, so now it should be a little bit different. Great, I think this looks okay. Let's just add another layer, which is this one, and let's just decrease the opacity a little bit to make it a little bit more faint, like so. Great. And let's just take the snow texture as well, and let's do the same thing and just paint the peaks this time around. Make them white to indicate the snow deposit on top. Like so. So I'm not taking a lot of time with the texturing. Of course, you could spend a whole day polishing it to make it look better. For instance, the textures themselves, you could play around with the settings to have them look a little bit better and more realistic if you want. But for now, I think this does an amazing job for the scene that we have. Obviously, if you've got a third-person shooter, for instance, a first-person shooter, sorry, then you'll need something that looks good when the player walks, and right now it just looks like it's grid based, which is not exactly pretty. So let's take a look at how it is. So display 1 looks nice, and display 2 as well looks, yeah, it looks good. I think I might actually make this a little bit smoother, like so. So it has a little bit of a shine with it. Great, I think it looks amazing. Let me just make it a little bit whiter up top and more intense, like so. Make this white, make this as well white on top. Save that, and let's just do that here, so it's a little bit whiter here. Great, I think it looks amazing now. So now that we've got the ground texture and the mountain textured, we can move on to actually texturing the other assets such as the grass, train, truck, and trees. So let's start with the trees. So for this one, I'll just take one tree, and we've got the leaf and the trunk mesh. So let me just copy the name of the trunk mesh and have it here. So now I can select all of them at the same time. Obviously, if you had a prefab, it would be actually easier. For me, the crosses are actually prefabs, so then I'll show you how to actually texture those. But this one is not actually a prefab, it's the model directly. Obviously, in your game, you should actually do it as a prefab, so this way when you change one instance, it changes everywhere. So now here, let's just go back to textures, and I want the bark willow texture. So let's just create a new texture, call it wood bark, and let's just assign this here. Then I'll duplicate this texture, and then I'll rename this to normal here, normal, and then I'll change the texture type to normal map and click apply, and then here I'll just drag and drop this in the normal field, and we can actually leave everything as is for now, and let's just focus on one trunk so we can actually view the texture, and let's just select everything else and drag and drop this into the materials field on the first one and hit save. Now let's just click on leaf mesh and do the same thing. Let me just create another material here itself, call it leaf, and let's just assign this leaf mesh to this leaf material and hit save. So now that we've got the material set up, let me just ensure that the actual texture looks great. Okay, so there is some trunk that did not actually get the material set up. Let me just add this real quick. So this is the leaf mesh and this is the trunk. Oh, okay, that's weird. Okay, I guess the model just got it confused then. Okay, if in that case, let me just regroup everything on top, and let me just create a new one, parent, and let's just quickly expand all of these. So for this one, we only need the leaf mesh to be the trunk and the trunk mesh to be the leaf. So the leaf mesh is the trunk, while the trunk mesh is the leaf. Okay. Most of the time when you're actually downloading 3D models, you should actually have the actual textures with them. However, on this website I did not, so that's why I need to actually make the textures separately. Okay, great. So now we've got this setup. Let's just go back to the wood bulk material and let's just play around with the settings. So as you can see, here is the metallic that we don't want to use, and then we've also got the smoothness, but of course our wood is not smooth, so we won't be actually using that. Okay, let's just have some place where we actually have some light. Wait, okay, let's just also have the electric poles as well set up with this wood texture. So this is the main 100 mesh. Let me just take all of this here and just have the wood bulk set up. Great. So now I can actually observe the textures here. Let's just remove the texture map, the normal map, because I think this one is not working well for this particular material. And then let me just play around with the smoothness. Let's make it a little bit smooth, not too much, because this is wood after all and we don't want it to start reflecting the light. And let's just play around with the different settings. So let's just put it triplanar, sorry. And I think the scale looks about as good as it should. If I'm not mistaken. How about this? Does it help a little bit better? Yeah, it does help. Okay, great. So let me just play around with the normal map a little, like so, and let's just actually make it smooth instead of sharp. Great, now it looks a little better. So if we go about, everything looks a little nicer now. And these are a little bit dark, but that's fine. As for the leaf, let's just have a dark green color. I think this looks amazing. And let's just don't forget to play around with the smoothness and metallic value. So like that. And here we can change the type to subsurface scattering, and let's just assign a foliage diffusion profile to it and play around with the settings a little. Smoothness, and these you can keep as is or just play around with it a little bit. As for the color, we'll take this one, but let me just explore some other ones. I think this looks amazing. Right, so now let's just do the same thing for these foliages. So for this one, I can just open one instance, as you can see here, and then I just assign the leaf material to the individual mesh, and it should technically give you the same thing. Actually, for this one, let's just change the colors a little. So instead of having it as green, why not have it as some kind of yellowish golden brown color? So something in this here. Like so. And I'm not going to use subsurface scattering for this one. I'm going to use standard. Let's just find a good color for it. I think this looks nice. And now let's just do the same thing for the actual rail track. So for this rail track, this one I want to use some kind of wood. I've got here, so the rough wood texture, and let me just create a material very quick, call it wood, and then just base map and have it set here. Again, don't forget that this one as well is not a prefab, so I need to actually change it everywhere. Save it. And now that this has been done, I can play around with the different settings like so. Now this looks amazing. Let me just, this is the pump, okay, let me just duplicate this as well and make it the normal map again, just like previously, and let's just make it smooth and just decrease this as well. And here let's just decrease this value to 0.21, and now it looks a little bit better. What happens if I decrease it a little bit? Okay, great, I think this looks better now. And now let's just do the same thing for the actual metal rails. This one I want to actually use a rusty kind of material, so I come here and use the metal texture. I just call it rust, material rust, and let me just click on this, so call the rails. I'll put that here, and as well as these things for the fastening mesh. Let's just select everything. It is going to use the same texture, so no worries here. And then let me just put that in the base mask, triplanar again, and let's just make it a little bit bigger like so. Great, I think this looks amazing now. And again, you can play around with these if you want. I'll leave it as 0 and 0, and coat moss actually just makes it a little bit more shiny if you want, but I don't think rust needs to be shiny. Yeah, 0.3 I think looks great. Great, now that this looks amazing, let's just do the same thing for the train. So for this one, I'll use the metal plate texture. And just have this one here. Again, I'll just put this 0 and have the metallicness as 1. What about triplanar? This is okay, it does look better. And now here let's just use different textures, so the two rust texture, this one and the other one, for the different things here. And then just take this other one, this one I put in for these small things here, so that it accents well. So I'll be back once I finish texturing this one. Great, so now as you can see, I've already textured everything. Obviously you could use your own materials and textures if you want. If you've got access to even more higher quality materials than this, it would absolutely make a huge difference in the final product. So now that this has been done, this was step 1. The second step now is to actually start with the actual post-processing. This has the greater impact on everything, and this will be the thing that will actually bring the whole image to life. So we've got two cameras. The first thing that you want to do here is to come here and put a post-processing. I prefer the sub-pixel morphological anti-aliasing, but you could use any one of them. And if you want to know what this does, is let's just put it as no anti-aliasing. As you can see here, these small edges just look a little bit more defined with an anti-aliasing algorithm setup. Great. So now that this has been set up, let's start moving around and changing the settings of the sky and fog volume. So just to keep in mind that we are using HDRP, the same thing should be similar to URP. However, some of the options in the post-processing profile you won't actually have, but it should still give you roughly the same thing and the same look. So the first thing that I want to do here is to change the ambient mode from static to dynamic, and then here we can just use an HDRI Sky. We'll actually change the let's just use a let's just keep it as a physically based sky. You could use an HDRI one if you want, and then let's just enable background cloud layers and put a cloud layer on top. This gives us some nice cloud to work with, as you can see here. Now we can enable wind if you want, and let's just put a speed here of, let's say, 50 or something. And for the physically based sky, we'll leave it as is. You can tweak the settings if you want. As for the fog, let's just let's just play around with this one. Let's just put this as 150 or 200. The base sky is 0, that's fine. For the tint, everything we'll leave as is for now. We'll tweak them later on. I think this is everything for the actual sky and fog. However, I'm also going to add another layer of cloud. This would be the volumetric cloud, sorry. And I just enable it real quick if in case it wasn't enabled. And while we're here, let's just go up top here and let's just enable some other features like retracing. We also want to enable high quality lines. You could keep it off, you could enable it if you want. Screen space reflections we need. Shadow mask, okay, screen space shadows as well we need. And I think that's it for now. We can close this. And now we'll see that we've got a new kind of clouds. This one you can actually move, and you can actually control the thickness and look of the cloud with more precision instead of just enabling and disabling the cloud. Great, so now we can enable it. So just click enable here, and as you can see, we've got some more clouds. And if you want to take a look, here is the cloud. So here we can go and say quality here, and as you can see, we've got multiple presets: overcast, stormy, sparse, or cloudy. Let's just keep it as cloudy. And you can have shadows as well. Let's just have it as high, 512 for the resolution. And now it should technically move with the wind. As you can see, it's moving a little bit based on the speed of the wind that you have. So that's about it for this volume. Just right click and let's just do another volume, a global volume. Click new, and here we are going to add some lighting ones. Firstly, let's start with these screen space ambient occlusion. This, as you can see here, just let it render. As you can see here, it helps with the shadows. So here, for the contact places, we can get some more shadows on the edges especially. So let's just have it here, for instance, and let's just have it high. And let's just play around with the direct lighting strength until it looks great, followed by some kind of screen space global illumination. Let's just have it as enable and use retracing. If you don't have a retracing capable hardware, you can use frame arching. And here let's just keep everything as is, as you can see. And then let's also use screen space reflection. Again using retracing. we'll leave everything as is. We can always tweak them later on if we need. And then for the other things we can keep as is. Let's just go back to shadowing. Let's just have shadows first. Let's enable the macro shadow. For this one I'll increase the distance to be quite a lot, so we can get some nice shadows even in the far reach. And let's also add the retracing effects. So first we'll have retracing settings, just enable this. We'll also have the path tracer, but for this one I'll just keep disabled for now. Reason being, if we enable it, as you can see, it is very noisy. So this is definitely not something that you want to use in real time. So for now I'll just keep it disabled, but we'll enable it later on. So this has been added. So now let's just add some post-processing effect. Okay, so let's just start with bloom. This gives a kind of glow to light sources. So hopefully we can see that here. As you can see, it just kind of blurs and glows at light sources. We'll see that in action later on. So let's just have the intensity set to 0.3, and let's just set this to high. We also want to add some tone mapping. I'll keep it at ACs. Also, let's just add some screen space lens flare as well. And let's just put the intensity to 1.5. You can always keep it down if you want. Post-processing, also some depth of field. This one, let's just use the, oops, not that one. So physical camera. And then this one, use high. Use camera here for the focus distance, and we can play around with weight. Okay, so we can play around with the focusing distance here. It should technically work. Okay, sorry, let's just use the manual range. This was a mistake by my. So here we can play around with the far range where it starts. So I'll have it start here, 87. Put it as 50 is too much. Let's play around so it just here. I think it looks great. Let's switch to here. Okay, this looks good as well. And as for the near blur, this looks quite good. Now if you want, you can increase the radius and play around with these settings if you want, but I think this looks better right now. And let's see if we can add some more stuff. I want to have some film grains. Let's just increase the intensity a little bit to about this one. I can't really see it on my monitor. Okay, yeah, I think this looks great. Also, let's just add some yeah, I think that's it for my taste. I'll just turn down the actual shadows to be a little bit warmer, or cooler, that is, and for the highlights to be warmer, and as well as for the mids. So this gives a nice warm look, as you can see. And yeah, so now that this has been done, let's play around with our light settings. So this is our sun. I want it to give a nice warm light. Okay, so let's just enable screen space shadows and shadows as well. Put this as high and save. Now you can increase the volumetric so that we get this nice looking god ray. And for the actual direction of the light, I want it to be directed like this. So Control Shift F, and let's increase the flare a little bit. For the intensity, have it as like that. Okay, wait, let me just play around with the direction of the light to give us a nice god ray. I think this looks kind of good. Yeah, I think this looks great. Let's put on the second one and see how it is. Yep, I think this looks amazing. And one thing real quick, let's come back to the fog, and here we can actually play around with the distance, as you can see here, to make the fog look more dense if you want. For the attenuation one, max fog distance, let's just put it as, oh, that's not what I wanted to have. 3000, it looks great. And I'll just give it a warm tint to it as well, like so. Great. And for the actual color grading, I'm just going to add the post-processing and color curves. Here I can just make a cool S curve here, just a little bit to give it a little bit more contrast. So as you can see here, now it pops a little bit more, and we can also add some color adjustment. So here I'm going to boost the saturation just a little bit. I don't need any of this. For the texture, for the contrast, -2, and for the exposure 0.12. I think this looks better. And let's just see what we can add. So same thing for this one, we'll have this setup like so, and then this here, and we can just decrease the gamma, doesn't need this one, and we can have a lens distortion just to give it a little bit of distorted effect, sorry. Great, I think this looks quite nice. And now if we want, we can just move the train a little bit forward, like so. Now it's a little bit more in frame, and I might actually add some kind of point light to have it, or spotlight that is, to have it appear as if it's actually emitting light. So from here, for instance, let's just have a light effect, call this spotlight, and this spotlight will need to be here on the actual rail track. Okay, so we'll just duplicate this to be 4 spotlights, like that. So now that we've got the 4 spotlights, we can ensure that it's actually pointing to the same place by just increasing the intensity and see where it shows. So 1, let's go here, let's turn off this, Okay, so this one is here. I'm going to rotate it a little. This one as well, I'm just going to rotate it just a little bit. As for this one, put it here, and then this one as well, put it here. Let's make sure everything is perfect. Great. Now it's all pointing in the same direction, so we'll have it have a larger spot angle as well as a bigger radius, or make it actually 0.01. And as for this, we can have it quite bright. For the range, we can increase it as well, and let's just increase the volumetric ones so it looks a little bit more foggy and moody. Great, I think this looks kinda good. I'm thinking if we can decrease this a little bit so it's a little bit more. Yeah, let's just have it. Okay, yeah, let's just have it here itself. And for the range, like so. Great. I think this looks amazing. So this is our display 1 and this is the display 2. Great. So this is how you can make some good looking graphics which looks good obviously in Unity. Of course, if you've got even more higher quality textures, for instance, as you can see here for the leaves, it's just one simple plain color, and if you had textures for the actual leaf, you could have used it and then just modify the diffusion profile to give a more consistent, beautiful feel. But this should be still plenty enough. And now if we were to enable the path tracing, just to see how it looks, we can come here and do enable, go back to full screen, and let's just hit play. Here is how the path tracer looks. It definitely looks better than the non-path tracing option, as you can see here, because it traces the light, which makes it feel more realistic. Of course, you still got the different denoising options here that you could have used, and also you can have different intensities as well as the maximum depth that you want, and increase everything else. Of course, all of these would help make the final image better, but of course if you overdo it, it might actually lead to consequences that you don't want. As you can see here, it appears as if the actual grass is actually glowing, which we don't want. But yeah, that's definitely something that is worth taking into consideration, and perhaps in the future, if Unity introduces the real-time path tracer, then we can have even higher quality views of our game. So if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe if not already, as well as don't forget to tell me what you want me to do next, especially on smaller format videos. And yeah, so on this note, I'll see you guys next one. Bye.